Hello, Mech Warriors, and welcome to the Mechbay, where we fix your mech and fix your game. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of the Mechbay podcast, your number one source for everything casual up to competitive tabletop Battletech content. I'm your host, the always overheating Josh. Our special guests today are Kurt.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
Good to have you. And we also have Denham. What's going on, Denham?
Hey, man. Good to be back. Thank you again.
Yeah, so today is going to be part 1 of our Lostech and Found episode, where we talk about all the new toys that came out of the Helm Memory Core and our thoughts on using them on the table. This episode's going to essentially be the new weapons, the ballistic weapons, the energy weapons, and the missile weapons, and part 2 will cover all the new equipment, like heat sinks, XL engines, and armor. But first, let's do our hobby progress and news. Today's hobby progress was sponsored by Ares Games and Miniatures. Get your hobby on at aresgamesandminis.com. So, Kurt, what have you been up to lately?
I've been putting together some models from Iron Wind. I just finished a Penetrator, a Hollander, and a Blackjack Omni.
I love the Hollander. I mean, before we get to mine, I got a mini of one of those a few years back, and I love that thing.
Yeah, hopefully soon it'll be able to come out and deliver some slugs to everybody.
Fantastic.
What regiments are these going into?
All three are going into my Davians.
Denham, what about you? What have you been up to since you were on last?
I've been painting spots on Smoke Jaguar mechs. I picked the Alpha Galaxy to do my Kickstarter mechs with, and I'm making at least a trinary of these, and I'm painting individual little Jaguar spots on each one, and it is maddening. I think I made a mistake.
But a happy mistake, right? Like a Bob Ross style mistake.
If it ends up looking as good as I want it to, then it will be worth it. But right now I'm in that it's dark. It's very dark.
Dark as in you're painting dark spots on.
No, as in I am in a dark place. But I see the light. Also been printing out the Borealis dropship from Steel Warrior Studios. It's the 3D model dropship that you can actually put mechs in. It's a mech scale leopardish style dropship. It's going to look really good on the table. There's no way that you'd be able to use it on the map as a gaming piece, but for some eye candy at the table, it's going to look really nice.
Would make a great thing for an objective game. Maybe a crash dropship scenario.
Oh yes. Also as a prize for a tournament, I think that would work out really well. I finally framed and hung up a lot of my Kickstarter posters. They look fantastic on the wall. And I got my first COVID shot.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah, no kidding. Can't wait to get back there on the tables again. Oh, I've also been running some of the mission series on Tabletop Simulator. That's going out actually really, really well right now. Everyone's finally getting into the swing of virtual dice, and it's working out.
Still just missing the regular ones, though, I bet.
It just makes me want to play face-to-face more. I mean, it just reminds me how much fun this game is when you're around an actual table with other people. But, it's a good stopgap.
Yeah, that was the main reason why I couldn't do a lot of the Mega Mech stuff after, once everything shut down, I was like, cool, we'll play on Mega Mech. But after everything kept going on about a year, I mean, it just hits you differently, and then it just makes you sad.
Just a little. But, the end is coming, and when it does, man, I'm ready for some games.
Sounds good. So, for my hobby progress, I finally tracked down a single spray can of black primer, which I've gone to 3 stores in the last 3 months looking for one. So now I can finally prime the rest of my Clan Invasion Kickstarter mechs. I know it's not the big news that everyone wants, but
hey, progress is progress.
It was the one holdup. I was like, I can't paint because I can't prime. And now that I have black primer, because I bought what I thought was black and was actually gunmetal, and you don't know how long I sat thinking I could paint white over gunmetal and just make it look good. I will paint white over black and make it look good, but I won't do it white over gunmetal.
Unless you're going for some advanced chipping effect.
I that's how long I sat there, and I was like, well, if I do heavy chipping and weathering, it might look good. Then I decided, no, do what you've been doing. You're mastering that. Don't reinvent the wheel, because you'll be able to see that on the table if I do. So I've got Dustin chained in the basement of the mech lab right now, and he's printing me up some 3D terrain also from Steel Warrior Studios. I think we settled on a bunch of like the Comstar themed ones for me to make a display board for. So when I want to travel around and show off the mechs at stores and whatnot when everything reopens, rather than keep them in a little cardboard case or something, I can actually just put it out on the table, show everything that I'm going to play with.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Like, it's always nice when you see like the Warhammer ones, like they do it for like the painting and everything. But I was like, I can do that with BattleTech and make it look real good.
I can't wait to see it in person.
Neither can I. But that'll be in the months coming projects. Because like I said, I'm still not expecting to go out anywhere in the next couple months, but it's something to work on for now. All right, in BattleTech news, we had the release of Shrapnel issue 4. I have not read any of the Shrapnel issues yet. They're on my backlog.
I love the idea of the Shrapnel magazines. I've read the first one. I own all 4 of them, and I'm totally subscribing to them when I think this is the last free one from the Kickstarter.
Really?
Yeah, and then they're going to a yearly subscription model, and I am all about that. The whole short story collections and articles that sound like you're inside the universe. BattleTech has almost always had a semi-yearly magazine, and I've missed it for a long time. So I'm super happy that they have made a return, and I'm excited to collect them all.
No, it sounds great. So are they like all lore, or are they?
It's a mix. There's a lot of just short stories from different periods. There are some new weapon articles. Hey, here's a new weapon that we came up with. Here's a new piece of equipment. Some of them are stories or advertisements that are as if you are in the universe, reading it yourself. It's just a lot of different things. But it's a great place for new writers to submit their own short stories and get them published. I think one of my shining moments was in college when I submitted an article for a football themed BattleTech game to one of the magazines, and it got published in there, which was really funny because I know nothing about football, but I know what BattleTech is, and so in my imagination, I'm like, well, this is how it would work, and they loved it. So it got published in one of the Mech Force Quarterly magazines. I got paid and everything.
No, that sounds awesome. I mean, we all do our little fan projects, and it's a bright day when it gets recognized officially.
It's fantastic.
We also got some Kickstarter news on Wave 2. Kurt, what are the deadlines looking like now?
The factory did finally make their deadline, the new deadline for the end of the month.
That's right, Kurt. It was supposed to be by the 31st, and they actually made it by the 30th, right?
Yeah. They beat their delay after the Chinese New Year. But then I guess they giveth and they taketh away, because then we got the Suez Canal and all the shipping delays. So yeah, they confirmed now it's looking like maybe June.
That's what I hear as well. Early to mid-June is when they will start shipping. Start shipping for the U.S. They're not sure exactly about non-U.S. shipments, because some of those weren't affected by the Suez Canal whole thing, and others definitely were. Instead of the U.S. getting everything first and then other overseas people getting them all after, it may actually be a slightly changed schedule this time.
Wasn't the fulfillment center in Florida for Wave 1?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, well, I've just seen online where people are asking, well, why can't they just ship it across the Pacific?
Why not? Well, let's do that next time.
So some other BattleTech news is Iron Wind Metals raised the prices for the first time in several years on their products, specifically their Battle Mech and BattleTech products.
Wasn't that because of the general increase in the price of the materials? Like, they're not just arbitrarily raising these things for more profit. but it's because their metals that they make these things have gotten more expensive as well, right?
Yeah, like check the price of tin. It's like doubled in the last year.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I really think that this increase, I think they've held it off for quite a while, and it's something that that it was inevitable, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened before.
If you look at some other companies like Games Workshop, where they increase significantly over like every 5 years, there's no sales or there's no way to get wholesale. We're still pretty lucky with Ironwind metals. So I looked it up, and it was they announced only around a 9% price increase, and I took a screenshot of the Atlas D3, the Gatling gun one, essentially. And that was $17.95 before, and it's $19.95 now. So
I don't find that horrible.
that's not painful in the grand scheme.
Not in comparison.
Yeah, I think the Ares, like the $50 super heavy mechs, only went up from 50 to like 54 or 55. So if you were getting $50 worth of mech, now you're just having to put on a little bit extra.
Inflation.
Yeah. All right, that's a good time to take a little bit of a break and hear a word from our sponsors.
I have one question for you. Are you ready? Are you ready for this Sunday night when Solaris champion Matt Balcombe defends his title in the Solaris Super Slam? Say goodbye to anyone standing in Matt Balcombe's way. We take some 6 mechs at a steel stadium, shoots and ladders match in the Solaris Super Slam as Matt Balcombe fights his way to the top in his Battle Master. Right now you can own this awesome pay-per-view holo disc for just $59.99. Call now and receive not 1, but 2 extra holo discs of Matt Balcombe's rise to the top and highlights in the arena.
Today's segment is sponsored by Fortress Miniatures and Games, where you can pick up individual plastic mechs, professionally painted lances, and new Hex City terrain to fill your tabletop needs. Check them out at fortressminiaturesandgames.com. All right, so the year is 3038, and a bunch of ragtag mercenaries found an old hard drive laying around after beating off some communications network personnel. And lo and behold, we can now upgrade our mechs again like it was the Star League. The big question on why you would want to upgrade your mechs with lost tech from the Star League for regular 3025 games into, quote, 3039, or some might even say 3049. Denham, why would you advance the tech level?
More toys equals renewed interest, plus more materials that can be deployed. For a hobbyist point of view, it's always good to not let your game get stagnant. You don't have to have a lot of things, but every now and again, just a trickle of new things really keeps the interest up. Plus, we're playing this game Battletech, and we want it to do well. And the people who own Battletech, they are running a business, and it's always good business to keep people coming back and buying more things. So new equipment means new products that are developed, printed, sold, and that's good for everybody.
In essence, that's the whole story of the timeline progression. New technology equals new mechs and stuff and new products.
Exactly. I think it's essential business-wise, but I also think it's essential for us. I and my brothers, my friends, we like to play a lot of Battletech, like using campaign settings or RPGs. And if you don't do that, then things do become stagnant. A new level of equipment, a new weapon, a new piece of technology can really spark a good story or a memorable mission. It's just good. I see no downside to adding more equipment to a gaming system at all.
What about you, Kurt? Why would you add a lost tech into your 3025 games?
It can definitely shake up the meta. It can definitely refresh some of those designs. We've all looked at some of those laser boats and some of them, or the autocannon mechs, and it needs something more to make it work. And some of these upgrades help those start ticking.
Yeah, I like it for the ability to kind of add in new technology, of course, and it really does breathe fresh air into old variants. Something you think you might have mastered might completely change if you throw 1 or 2 new pieces of technology onto it, and that really improves your ability to see the game at a higher level.
Now, Joshua, I do play with a lot of older gentlemen, And some of them do not like any of the new stuff. I believe we call them the grognards.
But not in a derogatory term.
Nope, absolutely not. No. And they're proud of it. They have patches and everything. But that's also the nice thing about BattleTech is that everything is separated into eras. They state at the when they play, they only play in the 30-25 era. And that's great because you look at the book and here's 30-25 tech and here's the equipment list that you get for that. And they can play the way that they want to play, and you can play the way you want to play, and it's separated in a nice way where we can do that. So once again, I see no downside to expanding the equipment library.
I mean, if your group doesn't want to move past 30-25, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're happy with that. But it really does change everything up. And like, if you have that favorite mech that just completely gets improved or becomes a whole different another beast on the tabletop, it is kind of nice to try it out and take it for a spin once in a while. The way I always kind of headcanon it is everything that you would see in the Helm Memory Core, it was already there in Star League, so you could always just say, well, this is my Lostech. Found it laying in a garage that I bought the key for at a garage sale, essentially.
Yeah, one of my role-playing games, they almost literally did that. Underneath the tarp was a like a Wasp LAM, and that was great until we smashed it. But yeah, it was exactly that way. Well, it was just laying there.
And considering I'm the pretty hardcore onto the Comstar plane, there's always some cache of do not touch, don't look under the curtain mechs laying around. So they exist. They're just not there out on the battlefield in the daily news.
Exactly. Like for real, that Comstar has these huge caches all over the inner sphere. And, what's to say somebody doesn't just stumble upon one of those every now and again. Now, the fun part of that campaign is Comstar trying to hush that party up, and what kind of missions ensue from that.
And as we saw in the Harebrained Schemes BattleTech on the computer, they added in Lostech after just having regular 30-25 introductory technology. That didn't completely break the game. It just kind of improved the flavor.
True.
So we're going to be going through all the Lostech that you can upgrade your mechs with to bring back that Star League feel. We're going to be comparing it to its essentially introductory technology equivalent. We're going to be discussing whether it's an upgrade, a side grade, a downgrade, the best way to use it. So we're going to be not afraid to get technical. We're going to be talking weight savings, critical slots, heat, ammunition, and anything else we can think of. All right, so let's start out with what I considered one of the worst weapons in introductory technology, but its improved cousin, the Ultra Autocannon 5. So what does the Ultra Autocannon 5 do versus the Autocannon 5?
It's quite nice. It actually increases the range. So instead of the old AC5 going out to 18 hexes, this is going out to 20. Not a lot, but it does help some of the range bands compare more to LRMs. The other big thing is you can elect to fire it twice, but at the risk of it possibly jamming for the rest of the game. And then it's treated as a cluster 2 weapon, similar to an SRM2.
What do you think about it, Denham?
Oh, I definitely think that this is a solid candidate for the title side grade. It's one of those weapons that you can swap it out for the original one, but it has some advantages, but definitely some game balancing disadvantages to offset that. Therefore, if you're running a mech that has an ultra autocannon against a mech that has a regular autocannon, neither side really has an advantage per se. One might have its uses in a certain type of fight, whereas the other one doesn't. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be, one side does not have a clear advantage, is what I'm trying to say.
For one extra ton of weapon, you're getting the chance to do twice as much damage. Now, statistically, you won't do twice as much. You'll still be doing one shot most of the time.
And also the chance for it to jam permanently for the rest of the match and do 0 damage from there on out.
Yeah, that's a big downside that a lot of players don't like about it, especially considering even later weapons have the capability to unjam. But if I have a ton, when we get to some of our other new technology, if I can free up a ton somewhere and I have an AC5 already, yeah, I'll certainly use that ton to upgrade.
I like options myself, so I tend to use the Ultra AC5 over a regular autocannon. I just keep calling it autocannon because when I began playing, that's all it was. So in that case, the AC5 and the Ultra AC5, it is a nice thing to see. That weapon needed some love. But I like the option of firing 2 shots when I feel I need to. So I will also, just like you said, if I've got an extra ton and I don't know what to do with it, I've got, my mech is heat neutral, I will definitely upgrade it.
At worst case, you're going to go through your ammo twice as fast. But in the best case, you will hit twice with 5 damage. And for 1 extra ton, 5 extra damage is a very worthwhile advantage.
And when it jams on your very first shot, it always makes a good story.
Honestly, I've never fired mine because I've never had it jam at long range. If I'm firing at long range, I've always fired it single shot. So that first shot of the game is never going to jam for me.
All right. So continuing on in the ballistic section, we have the LB10X.
This is probably what I would consider the biggest, best upgrade of all of these weapons. It has less weight, uses less space, uses less heat, gives you multiple ammo types. I mean, this longer range, this weapon is A+++. It almost seems too good to be true. I'm not sure any time when I would ever pick a regular autocannon 10 over the LB10X, even if it's only got 1 ton of ammo and I'm only going to fire a solid round. I would always take that just to save the weight and the space. I guess the only exception to that would be if I'm running a game where money is tight and I'm actually, bookkeeping and keeping track of money to design and build a mech. I'm not sure how much more expensive the LB10X is, but that would be the only reason that I would not ever upgrade every weapon or AC10 to that weapon.
What about you, Kurt?
Yeah, I am very much that this is a solid upgrade. Between everything that's already been said, there's no negative. There's no downside to taking it instead of a autocannon 10 outside of just if you're buying the gun in part of a campaign.
It confuses me. Every time I see this list, I wonder what were they thinking when they put that in there, whereas all of the other weapons have some sort of trade-off, some sort of negative, but this one is just a solid, what do they know that we don't? It's why it makes me suspicious. It's just too good.
How did it get lighter at the same time it did everything else?
Lighter and smaller, yeah.
See, that almost looks to me like if they were trying to fix the original autocannon line.
Yeah.
And this was I don't want to say retcon, but we understand we might have made autocannons not as effective or wanted to as nice looking on the tabletop for play. And the LBX-10 was their band-aid for that.
Well, I wish they had carried that on with the rest of the autocannon line because they never did quite what I would say fix the autocannons to make them truly, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, there's a very solid reason to touch on it why the clans no longer use the basic autocannon.
Because it sucks?
It's not even in their inventory.
That is correct. It is not.
It was totally replaced by the LBX line.
Yep, between the LBX and the Ultra, that's the only choices you get for clan. But this is not about the clans right now.
No.
So we'll get to
just
that.
a touch point as to why it got phased out.
Yes.
So this is a direct supposed to replace all autocannon 10s, and the autocannon 10 should not exist anymore once this was on the field.
That is the way we played it in my campaigns. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if we go to tech and later eras, there's a certain niche use. I could use an autocannon 10 instead of this, but generally no.
I will say that we forgot to mention, but the LB-10X actually, when you fire the cluster rounds, has a -1 to hit penalty. Or advantage, I should say.
Not just, it's a -1 for most things, but it also gains flak against VTOLs and arrow.
And what does that do?
It's a further -2, so it'd be a cumulative -3 against those targets.
And as a cluster, doesn't it do more damage to infantry as well?
Yeah. The pellets will do more damage to infantry.
I don't see any reason to ever use a regular AC-10.
Not until you get to the Civil War era.
Not in 3039.
No, you got to get to the FedCom Civil War for that precision autocannon ammo.
So I think we can label this one as suspiciously awesome.
All right, so to the next, what I would consider almost brand new ballistic weapon, the Gauss rifle.
Yeah, we can't consider this an upgrade or a downgrade because it didn't exist in the time in the downfall of civilization for hundreds of years, and now it's just basically a new weapon.
All right, so the Gauss rifle is 7-15-22 range. It's 1 heat. It is 15 damage, and the weapon itself is the explosive part. The ammunition is inert and does not explode, but the weapon will explode with a 20-point damage if it is destroyed. So where does the Gauss rifle fit in to all the new weapons?
Definitely fits into sniper mechs.
BFG mode on any mechs that can handle it. I mean, its range is equivalent to ERPPCs and missiles, but it does 15 points to one location.
Yeah, this always felt like what the ballistic line should be working towards, rather than more damage at shorter range. It should be doing good damage at medium to long range.
Well, it was the introduction of the very first weapon that at any meaningful range, above 9 hexes, that could decapitate a mech with one shot. So it's the first across the board one shot kill weapon that they had developed for this game.
Do you think that was their goal when they were designing it?
I do not, and I think that they realized that later, but they never fixed it because of the clan invasion anyway that had other weapons that could also do that. You know what? Maybe that's true. Maybe they added that in there because the clans had the ERPPC that did 15 points, and they just felt that Inner Sphere had to have something to balance that. So maybe it was intentional. I don't know.
If you go through and look, the Gauss rifle is the main competing weapon against clan technology.
I think when I first found out about it, I was honestly surprised to find out that the Inner Sphere also had that technology.
And the only difference between the clan and the Inner Sphere one is the clan is 1 ton and 1 crit space lighter, I believe.
The clan one is 3 tons lighter and 1 crit space smaller.
So, but it's still the same range and damage. So
yep.
It's not really a competing weapon, or I should say a competing advantage or disadvantage for either tech base.
Yep, I'd consider it pretty even, an equalizer, if you will.
So would you say the Gauss rifle is like the pinnacle of the Lostech?
I would definitely say that.
It's definitely in the top 1 or 2.
But what makes it just so good? Is it the range specifically? Is it the damage?
It's the damage at that range.
Paired with heat. Pair it with an ERPPC, and I mean, you got a good sniper mech if you have one of each of those.
At 25 points of damage for 16 heat. It's not bad.
Unfortunately, you only get 8 shots per ton of ammunition, so if your mech does have a Gauss rifle on it, it is only going to be shooting 8 to 16 times, which for a regular game is all you need.
But at 1 heat, just take out more heat sinks and add in more ammo.
Yeah, and it's a pretty popular replacement for an AC-20 they're only a ton apart.
Rather than going the short-range Intersphere 30-25 brawl, you're going for the mid-range duke it out and try to get lucky with a headshot or critical.
But it does have a minimum range, but it's only a 2, so it's not even that bad.
No, a 2 is workable.
I mean, at worst, it's no worse than shooting at medium range.
If you're at 2, you should be firing your small pulse lasers anyway.
So that wraps up our ballistics upgrade section. So moving on to the energy, I would say the most new energy weapons that we got would be the introduction of pulse technology, turning your lasers on and off really fast. So
that just reminds me of going into my brother's room and flipping the light switch off and on a billion times in rapid succession.
Were you hitting him at shorter ranges and -2 to hit?
Always.
Yeah. So that's the big difference between regular pulse lasers and regular lasers is the -2 to hit and the shorter range for slightly improved damage. So we'll start with the small pulse laser.
I love the small pulse laser.
Same here.
So it's 1 ton, 1 crit. It is 3 damage, just like a regular small laser, but it does 2 heat this time. Same range.
Yep, twice the heat, twice the weight, -2 in all ranges. Not a bad trade-off. I personally think that it's still a side grade because you can get 2 small lasers or 1 small pulse. So it's either 2 shots with 2 lasers at short range or 1 shot with 1 laser, but at a -2 to hit. So depending on the other modifiers, the math may actually favor 2 shots with regular lasers instead of just a -2. But circumstantial. So in my mind, it's a side grade.
This is me coming from a combined arms viewpoint. To me, it's a solid upgrade compared to the small laser. Total Warfare treats it the same as a machine gun against infantry. So you can get rid of your machine guns and the ammo bomb just for a little bit of heat.
All right. Now that I did not think about. Going up against infantry, that's definitely balancing it more towards the upgrade. One of my problems was that if we're not going against infantry and you have a targeting computer, you still get the -1, but you lose the ability to target a specific location on a mech if it's shut down or disabled.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, pulse weapons get the -1, but pulse weapons are not allowed to target locations using a targeting computer.
Balancing factor.
Yep. So, okay, with the anti-infantry in mind, I could be persuaded to say that it is, in fact, an upgrade.
Yeah. Even the other pulse lasers do increase damage to infantry compared to their regular variants, but you're kind of overkilling.
I do not like the Intersphere, medium, and large pulse lasers at all.
So let's go to the medium pulse laser. So the medium pulse laser is 6 damage for 4 heat, and that's 2 tons instead. That's range is 2, 4, 6.
Yep. So it does 1 more point of damage for 25 or for 30% more heat. And the ranges are all down basically 1 level. So if it was in long range before, it's out of range now. If it was in medium range, it's now in long range. So since you're doing, like, if you need an 8 with a medium laser at medium range, and instead you use a medium pulse laser, you're now at long range. It's -2 for the pulse, but +2 for the range. You're back to an 8. You're still at an 8 at 6 hexes. So you've just, there's no point, and you can't go out to 9 hexes, so you've lost a whole range bracket.
It's a situational side grade to me, something that has a tactical niche. You got to match it to the type of mech. For me, I like them on some of my jumpy mechs. Some of the things like a spider that's already going to be jumping every turn. That -2 is pretty nice to offset the jumping.
If you can always consistently get to 1 or 2 hexes away, like always, then sure, the damage is nice. But other than that, I would rather have for twice the weight. Let's just say I would always rather have 2 medium lasers than 1 medium pulse laser in any given situation.
I do like it on some of those mechs that are close-in brawlers that do want to get to that 1 or 2 hexes and do physical attacks. It works well on those. It works pretty well on those mechs that, it's a secondary weapon for a sniper maybe. Something where you just need to have a defense against, a fast flanker like a light mech to try to offset their speed bonus.
Well, in that case, the lighter mech is probably going to be enough hexes away that it's going to offset the pulse versus range bracket again. And once again, if I'm firing at something like that, I'd rather have 2 shots against him than 1 at the same to hit number because of the range.
So you think pulses are actually a trap?
Well, absolutely, I do. I think you're like, oh wow, I've got a pulse laser. This is going to be awesome, and yet it will underperform in 99% of the situations that you find yourself in.
Yeah, I'll agree to that in general. You have to have a specific purpose for the mech, and you have to play it to that purpose. If you go outside of that niche, yeah, it's bad. I wouldn't give it a general upgrade.
You would still call it a general upgrade?
No, I would not call it a general upgrade for most mechs.
I gave mine, I rated my medium pulse laser an F-.
If the price came down to taking heavier, larger weapons, and I don't have the heat really to throw on twice as many medium lasers, I will still take the same amount of pulse lasers, which is normally what happens on mechs. They just exchange the medium laser for the pulse laser, and they take the weight savings from either the heat sinks or something else and put that onto a much larger, heavier damage weapon. I don't consider medium pulse lasers a primary weapon for a mech.
No.
All right.
So moving on from that, we'll supersize us and get to a large pulse laser. So that's 9 damage for 10 heat with a range of 3, 7, and 10 with 7 tons. And that's the same tonnage as a regular PPC.
Man, I'd almost rather have 4 regular medium lasers than 1 large pulse laser.
I can't keep comparing everything to a medium laser because it's just so efficient.
That is true. The medium laser is the most technically efficient weapon in the arsenal still.
I could see it on a couple of mechs I like it on. Talking about this new tech, the Axeman from TRO 3050. I do like its large pulse. Simply because most of the time I'm going to be jumping anyway. That I'd consider a main weapon for some mechs if they're a jumping style.
Yeah, I was about to say, I would use this to replace it. I would replace PPCs with large pulse lasers, just if I'm not getting... If I don't feel like I have the chance to use the PPC's range advantage, I'd much rather just get in, have a large weapon that I can brawl with, and not have to worry about minimum range or heat to damage efficiency. It's kind of just I still don't want to think the large pulse laser is a primary weapon. I think it's to have something that I can play at range with, like either LRMs or extended range something. And the large pulse laser is there to say, don't mess with me in my medium range bracket.
I don't hate the large pulse laser as much as I do the medium pulse laser. I'd personally give it a C. But a jump capable medium mech that's a brawler type, that can move around in close when it needs to. I love something like the large pulse laser on that. You said the Hatchet Man 2. I mean, if you're going in there to do melee damage anyway, yeah, a large pulse laser I think would be great. Still better than a medium pulse laser.
We'll switch over from pulse to regular flipping the lights on and just leaving it on. The extended range large laser. So compared to a regular large laser, this has the same damage of 8. Its heat is upgraded from 8 to 12, so 4 more. And its range has gone from 5, 10, 15 to 7, 14, 19 for the same tonnage. Is this a true upgrade or a side grade to the large laser?
Side grade compared to a PPC is what I'd call it. Alternative to a PPC.
I'd say definitely side grade. Like you're giving it 50% more heat for 25% longer range, and that's the only difference is heat and range. The damage is the same. the tonnage is the same, the crits are the same. It's like, do you want a little bit more range for a lot more heat? So definite side grade in my mind.
Do you think the heat is too much of a drawback? Because this is one of the few weapons where we see a large difference in the heat to damage output.
Well, when we get to it, double heat sinks.
That's what I was just about to say. I was going to say, with the introduction of double heat sinks, I don't think that heat is as much of a problem for mech upgrades, not new design mechs, but for upgrades of existing models. I think that swapping out an ER large laser for a large laser is a tactical choice. So not an upgrade, but definitely a viable choice.
I mean, it does cost no tonnage difference. So
correct.
It is very easy to take out the large laser, put in the ER large laser.
One of my favorite lights, the Wolfhound. That's the Wolfhound 2. That was the upgrade. The main upgrade for it was exchanging its large. And for lights that had a large laser that are already real tight on weight, that's a great upgrade.
Yep, I agree with that. I love the Wolfhound.
Because that puts a lighter chassis that might not have the armor or speed to truly get in and brawl. And
yeah, or, I'm not cutting down armor on a light mech any more than I have to.
And you could be in short range with an ER large and still be out of range of the enemy's medium pulse lasers.
Yeah, because it is exactly one hex out.
Yep.
All right, so that was the ER large laser. Now, what about the extended range PPC? So this goes from, it keeps the same damage at 10, but for 5 extra heat, you go from 6, 12, 18 to 7, 14, 23 for the same tonnage. So that's 5 extra heat.
You also get rid of the minimum range of the PPC.
I was going to say that this is definitely an upgrade if you are using double heat sinks, because of the no minimum range and the extra 5, the 5 more range. Like those added together, and double heat sinks, this is what I would consider an upgrade, straight up.
So is it an upgrade because you can get closer with the PPC this time, or is it an upgrade?
You have options. Having options with a weapon is a big thing to be. Same tonnage, same crits, but longer range and no minimum. I'd say it's worth the heat.
Yeah, I'd call this a primary weapon on most mechs. But I only give it I will only call it an upgrade if you are using double heat sinks.
100%.
Yeah, because that is doing 15 heat for only 10 damage, and at that I'd rather just have a regular PPC. It's hard for me to justify that range increase.
The 3050 Panther, they kept it on single heat sinks, but gave it an ER PPC.
Did they upgrade the number of heat sinks it had?
No.
Oh.
So, yeah, it'll shut down if it just keeps firing it.
Yeah, well, guys, it's only got its standard 13 heat sinks, if I recall. So you can fire it several times before that happens if you're not moving. But if you're in a light mech, you better be moving.
Yeah, the ER PPC is a hard weapon for me to swallow, just due to the heat. But it is very nice to have the full bracket range of 23, which is the longest of all the laser weapons, and only one short of the AC2. So it's almost can touch everything that can be touched.
And going back to what we've already said, it's a perfect match with a Gauss rifle. Perfect partner. You offset one weapon's high heat with the other one's low, and you get a pretty nice average for good damage.
I believe that I had mentioned targeting computers with the pulse laser argument, and I realized that is not a thing in the inner sphere yet. Correct?
Correct.
So that nullifies some of those arguments.
Yeah, won't be until Civil War era.
Okay, well, so anybody who's like listening to the podcast and you're like, targeting computer, man, where's that? No, it's not there. You won't find it.
It doesn't exist, my friend. All right, so that wraps up our laser section. So who would you say was the biggest winner of all that?
Of the energy weapons?
I'd
say, really? I still think that's a side grade. I think the ER PPC is more of an upgrade than an ER large.
But y'all both agree that the extended range weapons are better than the pulse weapons on a general scale.
Certainly.
Yes.
Okay. We'll go back to our pulse debate at a later date after blinding you with a strobe for several minutes.
Let's settle this on the battlefield.
So we've covered our energy weapons and our ballistic weapons, but thankfully the missile weapons available did get a few upgrades. The most notable of them would probably be the Streak SRM-2. So, Denham, what does the Streak SRM do?
Well, first of all, it is definitely an upgrade. It is only half a ton heavier, but if you hit with both missiles. So there's no more, you have to roll an 8 or higher on the cluster hit to hit with both missiles. And your ammo basically lasts forever. SRM-2, you get 50 shots per ton, and you're never going to go through 50 salvos in any given game, which is important for campaign style of play, which I do play a lot. So when your ammo stores have to transfer over from one mission to another, it's nice to just know that your SRM-2 is not something you're going to have to worry about. It's either going to lock on and hit, or it doesn't lock on and your ammo is not wasted.
Yep.
I find it a significant upgrade.
100% efficiency for damage conversion.
If I am not mistaken, Kurt, you cannot put Inferno rounds in a Streak SRM-2, correct?
Correct. I was going to consider a Streak kind of a side grade.
Just because of that? That's the only downside I can think of it.
Yeah, outside of weight differences, that's the only... And if memory serves, older editions of BattleTech actually let you put Infernos in Streak 2s.
Well, the older editions of BattleTech also only let you put Infernos in, or let you put Infernos only in SRM-2s, so you didn't even have the option to put it into an SRM-4 or SRM-6 anyway. So that's why I believe that they allowed you to put them in SRM-2s.
So would you always exchange your SRM-2s for a Streak SRM-2 at the cost of not having an Inferno rounds available?
No, I wouldn't, because I love Inferno rounds. I love them, but Streak SRM-2s have their uses, so it depends on how I'm going to be playing that mech.
It's also nice for those times where your other weapons have already kind of hit your heat cap, and you're kind of like, okay, I could maybe want to do another 2 to 4 points of damage in a couple locations, do a little crit seeking, and if you miss, it's no extra heat. It doesn't penalize you, so it's nice in a couple of those cases where you're already riding the heat curve.
Yep, where it would be worth spending the heat if you knew you were going to hit.
Yep. So things like the ShadowHawk, the SRM-2 on a Thunderbolt, I like it where they upgraded those to SRM-2s. Some of those, like on the Javelin, where they replaced the SRM-6 with 2 SRM-2s, I'm a lot less sure on that, just because of the loss of Infernos.
Yeah, if you've got like 2 to 4 SRM-2 Streak systems, I'd rather just have like a couple 4s or a 6 instead. Just because I don't think the math adds up when you're rolling the dice that many times for a hit or not.
No, but the big advantage is that you're not having to waste time rolling on the cluster table for 2 missiles.
Correct.
Like if anything, it's almost a mental upgrade.
Yeah, there you go. I like that one.
Upgrade for your mech. It's a mental upgrade for not having to be sad about, well, I only 50% of my missile volley hit. How big was your volley? 2 missiles.
And a 7 still only gets you 1 missile. You have to roll an 8 to get 2 missiles.
Yeah, it's like, what, a 43% odd or something?
It's not as high as I want it to be, so yeah.
But if you have problems hitting missiles most of the time, our next upgrade might help out with that. So that would be the Narc Missile Beacon. I'm going to test y'all's knowledge on the Narc. So the Narc is what I would consider a bit shorter ranged in the comparison with all the weapons we've already gone over. It's only a 369. It's 3 tons for 2 crits, and you have to actually take Narc ammo.
Yep, 6 per ton, if I can recall. The Narc is great when you can get a light, fast, cloaked mech in close enough to get a shot off, because if you fire one and it hits, I mean, it's the same ranges as a short range missile. So if that mech has SRMs anyway, you might as well just fire a narc. If it hits, it attaches magnetically attaches a homing beacon to the mech. And if it hits, it stays on there. It doesn't ever come off. You can't scrape it off. You can't narc it off. And any other missile weapons that have narc equipped missiles, which is not like a game thing. You don't say, okay, well, I've got to pick this from the table. They're a different size missile. They're not. You just say, I'm going to put in narc controlled SRM or LRMs. And if you're counting money, they're just twice as much money. They're not a special ammo type. They're the standard ammo type, just twice as much money.
They put the good computer chips in those missiles. That's
right. So the 2-hit number doesn't change, but when you hit with a narc ammo, you give a +2 modifier on the missile hit table. So if you roll, a 10 or 9 on the cluster table, suddenly it's an 11, and the 11 tends to be all the missiles hit, 11 or 12. So it's just on average, way more missiles hit when you hit.
The other fun thing is it removes the need for spotters.
What do you mean?
Yeah, once it's tagged, if you would fall back out of line of sight, your missile boats don't need a spotter anymore.
Yeah, so I'm reading it right now. The indirect LRM fire. Once a narc pod is attached to a target, all narc-equipped missiles may be fired indirectly at the target without a spotter.
Yes, I was thinking you meant from Arrow 4 missiles. Does it count for those? Because those have to be guided in with tag, right? Yeah, I don't think it counts as tag. Yeah, but that's what I thought you meant by spotters.
Oh, gotcha. No, so the narc gives the option of you can either have +2 to the cluster hits table, or you can fire without the +2 but not need a spotter.
I don't think that was originally one of the. I think that's an upgrade, a rule change, because like I said, I'm used to playing from a long time ago, and I don't recall that part being one of the rules. So that's cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, just to add one thing, there is a way to remove it, but it's destruction of the section where the missile hit will remove the narc.
All right, that makes sense too.
If it latches on your right torso, and your right torso is later blown up, you no longer have a narc beacon attached.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Yes. But it can't be scraped off. You can't I roll around on the ground or rub up against a tree. Yeah, that's not going to do anything.
You have to go back to the Mechbay and get all your big, strong mech friends to give you a good rubbing in the shower to get that narc beacon off.
But I like that it works with both SRMs and LRMs.
Yeah, as long as you're taking narc-equipped ammo.
Correct.
That's a big thing.
Which is different than Streak or Artemis 4 or Swarm or Thunder. It doesn't work with any of those.
Yep. So if one guy in your Lance has a narc, everybody gets loaded with narc ammo.
But I would consider that an upgrade. I know it costs weight. It's another weapon that you have to hit. But if you've got a lot of a Lance or a company of missile boat heavy mechs, it's pretty essential.
But on the other side of that coin is the Artemis 4 weapon system, which is essentially half of the narc for half of the weight. So the Artemis 4 just gives you the +2 to the cluster table, and that is for LRM or SRMs, if you're using Artemis-equipped missiles, of course. But it does not do anything for spotters. So this is if you want the narc's benefit, but you don't want to have to run up and shoot a mech with it. So what do you think about Artemis 4?
If I'm using just a Lance or if I've got one missile boat, then I would give my catapult Artemis, just because I don't want to waste space on another mech doing, for a weapon that does no direct damage just for one mech. I'd rather have that on the one mech. And only use narc if I have a force of missile boat mechs. So for me, it's a matter of scale. It's the return on your investment.
Yeah, I would definitely say that an Artemis 4 is a single mech weapon system, and a Narc is a Lance or company weapon system.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, and just putting it out there, Artemis is much more prevalent amongst most of the canon designs. Narc is pretty rare.
Well, Narc is on a couple. You're right. I think where Narc shines is if you're using some of the new scout mechs, like some of my favorite. We'll touch on that later. And with a mix of older designs, and you're playing in a company, so you've got standard catapults, standard archers, and you just put one new mech into your lance, then you can make sure that new mech has Narc, and then you just swap out the ammo for all of your old mechs, and you don't have to do a refit on all of them with Artemis. And then that just pays off big time. Whereas for all the mechs and the TROs that have Artemis built in, it's because they don't know if people are going to use those in teams, so they're just trying to show off, if you've just got this mech out there, this is why it's awesome, because it has its own upgraded targeting system. So it's, how you play the game, how you want to play the game, how you build your forces.
Definitely. So I think that's a good stopping point for today. We covered all of the new ballistic weapons, energy weapons, and missile weapons that you can upgrade your mechs with using Star League technologies found in the Helm Memory Core, and why Lostech is a nice, fun way to boost up your game. Next week, we'll be covering all the new defensive technologies and equipment like Ferro, Fibrous, XL engines, and everyone's favorite, the double heatsink. I'd like to thank everyone for listening today, and especially our patrons for supporting us. That lets us do this kind of content, and we will see you all next week.